Okay, let's see where we're at. All right, I think let's get started. We have somewhere between 25 to 30 people already in here. Happy Friday, everyone. Good morning and welcome to Gordon Food Services webinar of the week, sponsored by eat.news. Today, we're going to focus on a super interesting and very relevant topic called creating virtual dining experiences. So without further ado, let's get started. Introductions first. Hi everyone, I'm Disha Gulati. I'm the founder and CEO of Virtual Dining Chicago. It is a platform that we launched very recently to help support the hospitality industry and our restaurant operator partners in these crazy COVID times. The purpose of Virtual Dining in Chicago is to be a go-to resource for everything innovative and creative that's happening in our industry, in our community. So everything from interesting takeout and delivery ideas to virtual events that folks are doing around town and nationally and even internationally, to creating a commerce platform where folks, hospitality professionals, restaurants can actually create alternate sources of revenue. So we're going to get into all of that. Really excited to break it down. Along with me, I have a couple of other co-hosts today. Carly Conley, she is the founder of Mise-en, which is a brand strategy consulting firm, and Carly focuses a lot of her time in the hospitality industry. Prior to Mise-en, Carly led media strategy at CBS, as well as William & Sonoma. So Carly knows a lot about this industry and how restaurants should be thinking of pivoting at a time like this. We also have a very special guest, Belinda Chang. Hey, Belinda.
Thanks.
James Beard Award-winning wine pro. I can't wait to get into that. But she's also the founder of Virtual Boozy Brunches, which is exactly the type of thing we want to talk about today. We want to learn from Belinda what her journey has been with these Boozy Brunches, how she got started, and what type of traction she's seeing, and what an event like this could become post-COVID as well. So Belinda, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you eat.news for giving us this opportunity to have this amazing webinar. The agenda for today, guys, is going to be super short and succinct. Hopefully, Carly and I will spend the first 30 minutes kind of talking about what the anatomy of a virtual event is. It's not as simple, and Belinda can attest to this, it's not as simple as just turning on Instagram Live and then interacting with your audience. So let's kind of talk about when we do these virtual events, why we do them, and what is the end goal? Like, what is it that you're trying to get out of these? Then we'll move over, like I said, we'll talk to Belinda, we'll do a little Q&A session, and then we'll open it up for questions. Lots of content to cover. We'll try and be really efficient with our times. There is a Q&A box. Feel free to put your questions in there. We will try to pick them up along the way, but if we don't get to them, we'll definitely touch upon them at the end in the time that we've reserved for Q&A. All right, panelists, are you guys ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do this.
Fantastic. You know, I was just thinking the fact that you're on, we should all have had glasses of wine with us. I mean, it is 11 a.m.
A little morning mimosa. Yeah, I have some water, so stay hydrated.
I have my coconut water too, but it's so much better as we kind of talk about these boozy brunches. All right, let's get started. So anatomy of a virtual event. And by the way, we're going to try and summarize everything you need to know about creating a virtual event in, 24 minutes. But we have a very elaborate step-by-step guide on eat.news that kind of walks you through everything you need to do, along with some very action-oriented steps in the event that you are super inspired at the end of this webinar, and you would like to create an event of your own. All right, so let's kind of start with why folks are doing virtual events. Honestly, there are a myriad of reasons why you might think to do a virtual event. You're at home and there's nothing else to do. But also you're at home and you might actually have some time to dedicate to building and improving the brand that you've already created in your community. So one of the biggest reasons why people think to do these virtual events is to kind of maintain and enhance your brand. Now is the time that you can dedicate to perhaps building your social following, to building your customer distribution lists, to improving those social assets that you always thought you would get to, or creating a new logo, right? So this is the time to do some events that can help enhance your brand, not just with your current customers, but we were just talking about, you know, the audience makeup, for example, for today's event is not just Chicago based, even though most of the co-hosts today are Chicago based. We have folks joining from all over the country. Similarly, you know, now's your opportunity to take your brand outside of your physical location and amplify it on kind of digital channels all over the country and maybe even internationally. The other reason folks are doing this is for a very tactical reason. It's to develop new revenue channels. If you haven't already seen, there are plenty of kind of examples of how people are using this to develop new revenue channels, everything from DIY kits. So restaurants are creating kits that people can assemble at home. Restaurants are converting their storefronts into grocery stores. We just had a potential partnership conversation with somebody where they've converted their restaurant into a butcher shop. You know, diners don't usually have access to such quality meat in grocery stores. So they're actually being the conduit to get them this quality kind of produce. So this is an amazing opportunity to develop alternate revenue channels, but how do you amplify these revenue channels? How do you tell people that you're doing something interesting is through virtual events. And we'll get a little bit more into what that could look like. And lastly, it's increasing existing sales. So how do you remain top of mind with your customer? Right. So a lot of restaurants are doing weekly specials and they're changing since you're not kind of giving access to your full menu. How do you tell them about these weekly specials? What's interesting about them? It is very, very effective to take your follower, your customer into your mind and walk them through not just the thinking process, but the prep process, the cooking process. So that's another amazing opportunity to create a virtual event. So basically what I'm trying to say is virtual events are not just let me show you how to make the most perfect poached egg. It can be used in a variety of different ways to a variety of different goals and objectives. So keeping kind of that in mind, let's talk about what would be the right type of virtual event for you. And Carly, I'm going to turn this over to you since you're in the business of producing and making events. You know, walk us through a little bit about how should we think about what are the different features of a good event, and how should we think about what's the right one for a person who's trying to hit upon one of these or all of these objectives?
Yeah. So as with anything in producing or in content development, you want to think about who your audience is and what your goals are, right? So because there are so many different options for virtual events, right? You could do Facebook Live, you could do Instagram TV, you could do Instagram Live, you could do Zoom, you could do, I mean, there are just so many different options, private events, public events, paid events, free events. You really have to like narrow it in on what is worth your effort and what are you trying to get out of this? Are you trying to test out new audiences? Are you trying to figure out partnerships partnerships that work for your business? Are you trying to get revenue in the door ASAP? Everybody has, a different mix of priorities and goals and guidelines that work specifically for their business and that are on brand for what they're doing. And so, or what you're doing as a individual business. And so really be thoughtful in the beginning, because even though we do have more time on our hands right now, that doesn't mean that it's not valuable time that you need to be, thoughtful and spending it in ways that hopefully impact whether it's your business from a financial perspective positively or helping employees that are furloughed. I mean, there are just so many changes that have happened over the past 6 weeks that it's really an important time to be innovative and open to trying new things, which actually may be sustainable and help you long-term from a financial perspective and audience growth perspective for your client base. Again, whether that's your restaurant and you're looking to get the word out about your meal kits for new diners, or you're just trying to engage and connect with your existing audience of really loyal customers. All these events, really boil down to, again, who is attending and what are you trying to get out of it? So first of all, I touched on the public versus private. It depends on the topic. And I know a lot of this is, it depends. I'm going to say that a lot because these things really should be tailored to, again, who your audience is and what your goals are. But for example, a public event would be great if you're trying to get brand awareness out there, right? You don't want to have the barrier of necessarily making it private and having people to, let's say, pay for the event or sign up in advance. People can do it at the convenience of their own schedule. If you make the programming weekly, like Belinda's, it's really smart because people then get conditioned and built it into their everyday or every week habits, being like, oh, I know it's 2 p.m. on Sunday, it's time for Belinda's Boozy Brunch, as opposed to being like, oh, I think there's an event happening. When was that again? There's, as virtual events have become so much more popular. I mean, this is me just geeking out on an SEO perspective, but it wasn't a term that was even trending 2 months ago. And now it's just, if you look at the graphs and the charts right now, it's crazy. People are looking for virtual events and are interacting with them more than ever for obvious reasons. So yeah, think about, again, your goals, the audience, public versus private. Happy to dive into more of that, but there's a lot for us to talk about. But just keep that in mind of questions you want to ask when you're developing these events with your team, and then free versus paid, obviously. And then also, very importantly, think about, are you trying to make this interactive or is it more of a presentation? So this webinar obviously is more of a presentation. Yes, it's a conversation between 3 panelists, but obviously there are events that are much more interactive. Let's say a cocktail class and you're interacting with the bartender and you can ask questions and everybody's unmuted on Zoom and it's total shenanigans and chaos and fun and great. But if you're trying to educate and teach people, having it be both public and everybody off mute might not be the best formula for having an effective learning experience and conversation. So that's a very as fast as I could make it, high level overview of what type of event is right for you. But again, always happy to answer more questions. And again, Disha and I talk about this a lot, but how do you create an impactful event? And so Disha, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So the one other thing I was going to add is, we talked about developing new revenue channels and having events kind of complement those revenue channels. But honestly, your event could be your revenue channel. And I'm hoping Belinda will touch on that a little bit as we go into an example. But we're seeing a lot of people charge a small entry fee and or kind of doing donations. Both are great ways to drum up support for your physical businesses, your furloughed employees, or just, if you're spending the time and creating an event that's cut above everything else that's out there, then by all means charge for it, right? Because there is a lot of social noise out there. There are a lot of options people have right now in terms of where they could be spending their time, even digitally. So how do you compete for that, and how do you create a product that truly will be impactful and resonate with whoever your target audience is? So kind of thinking about that. And then one thing I'll say about private events, and this kind of goes into identifying your audience, which is our next topic, is if you can, if you do create a private event, a great advantage is now you have their email addresses. Now you can contact them for further, whether it's for marketing when your kind of physical establishments open back up, and or other future events if that's the route you're taking in terms of developing a new revenue channel, right? So kind of having that information is amazingly useful, and you typically may not get that type of information if you just go on an Instagram live type of platform. So I'm always all about building the right customer database, so it is a great kind of asset to have. But again, it might not be right for the goal that you're trying to accomplish, right? Which might be reach, which is I need to build my brand. I'm a chef, I'm a mixologist, I'm just trying to build my brand, and I want to go as far as I can, and I want to remove all friction points in terms of people getting to my event. So that kind of takes us to identifying our audience. So the way I think about audience is in kind of two categories. One is obviously new or existing kind of diners, and we've talked a lot about that, but also from a geographic and a demographic perspective. Are you trying to build your audience or your followership within a certain community? So, for example, you've started creating pizza kits, right? And you want to deliver as many pizza kits as you can within your delivery perimeter, whatever that is. In that case, you want to do an event that targets an audience within that geography, right? And you can do that. We won't likely have a lot of time to touch upon this through digital marketing channels and say, hey, market my event to only people that live in certain zip codes, right? So kind of think about that geography, and then think about demographics, not just the platform that you're most comfortable with in presenting, but also where does your audience live physically, but also digitally, right? Are they on Instagram? Are they on Facebook? Would they rather get a step-by-step instruction guide to get on a Zoom call, right? So really think about who your audience is, what age group they're skewing in, what are they interested in? Are they on Instagram all day? Are they not on Instagram? Are they on Facebook? It's interesting as to give you an example, as we launched Virtual Diner Chicago, we launched a few digital marketing ads on all the social channels. And we're starting to learn that it's actually folks over the age of 50 who are way more interested in innovative, creative delivery options and takeout options than the younger folks, which to me sometimes is counterintuitive, but it could be because of the disposable income. It could be because of the types of restaurants that we're featuring. But that's not something I knew before we started doing the marketing. And it's super interesting. Carly and I talk about, do we double down on that, or do we create kind of new funnels for different types of audiences? But something for you to think about. Demographic and geography is also very important, as much as kind of retaining customers and acquiring new customers. This is definitely you, Carly. I mean, talk a little bit about, what are the different types of like events people are seeing out there, and how should we think about which one is right for us?
Yeah. So it's really pretty amazing how innovative and creative businesses have become, whether it's sommeliers like Belinda or restaurant owners who are turning their businesses into bodegas like Bar Biscay. People are being super creative, resilient, smart, about how to retain their brand within the process of doing something completely new for them, right? Changing a dining service that you were doing all in-house with no takeout or delivery beforehand, and having to switch over to how do we package family meals? What do we price them at? What's good for delivery? What third app delivery service do we use or not use? Because it's taking away from our overall margins. And so we're just going to do takeout and request that people call in. There are just so many different options that businesses have started to pivot to. And I think virtual events are a very natural transition to support those efforts, because let's be honest, there's a lot of noise in the digital space, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, getting Apple News feeds. Like, I mean, you look up best takeout Chicago and you're like, which resource is reliable here? Like, what should I read? Where am I going to get the best information here? And I think you can really break through as a brand by really just genuinely connecting with people through these events. And so some of my favorite events, minus, I keep saying Belinda's, but I've gone to almost all of them. So that says something in itself. But there's actually across the country, there are, let's say, distilleries who haven't even been able to distribute their first batch of bourbon are doing bourbon tastings where they have people sign up for the events, and then if they buy the bourbon, then they can attend a class with a distiller, like very small one-on-one class. Or there are classes on let's meet the designers behind the beer labels of Brooklyn Brewery, right? Like, you're getting to interact and ask questions with the talent and the people who are really making these incredible products, whether it's, again, beer, family meals. Some of the best restaurants across the country are all participating in this because we're all at home, unless your business is in fact running a takeout or delivery service right now. So yeah, I mean, honestly, the options are just, I don't want to say limitless, but really your creativity can take you wherever you want to go. Here, there's no playbook, so to speak, as far as to say, okay, this is the one way you do an event for it to be successful. I think it's a really exciting period from a production standpoint, where everybody is at home, everybody's in more or less, you know, pretty similar circumstances. And so people are not looking for these like overproduced, shiny, perfect events. People just want to connect, be real, learn, and support businesses that they care about. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can make that happen as a business. It's not just, oh, I don't feel like doing a recipe demo. It's like, then don't do a recipe demo. Like, talk about your favorite ingredient or your favorite seafood purveyor that you miss getting seafood from, and talk about that and teach people about the importance of sustainable seafood if you don't want to do a ceviche demo. Not everything needs to be, you know, a virtual event cooking class. Like, sure, that could be relevant for your brand, but doesn't have to be. Yeah, so that's like a quick summary, or as quick again as I could go into that. But one of the really exciting parts about all of this is that it is pretty easy to test it out, right? Like, it doesn't require money. It doesn't have to. You can, it just requires the partnership and the creativity of your team, and reaching out to people via, as Disha mentioned, whatever marketing channels you are currently using, and or it's a great time to test out new ones. So Instagram is a natural fit because food is one of the top viewed categories on Instagram, Facebook too. You can build out Facebook events, right, that you promote. If you're doing more of an educational event or a webinar like this one, LinkedIn's perfect. So yeah, you need to be, or it's helpful to be intentional, obviously, about the channels that you're promoting them on and how often and how it represents your brand. But, you know, it should be creative and fun, and not something that's super overwhelming to do.
Yeah, and the one thing, Carly, I will add, because you know, at Virtual Venue Chicago, we're actually helping a lot of hospitality experts and restaurant operators stand up these virtual events. And one of the other things that we're seeing that there's an interest for, and this might be interesting to some of you, is corporations are reaching out to also do virtual events. So especially in a time like this when everyone's work from home, companies are trying to get creative in terms of team building, in terms of still staying connected. So we actually did one a couple of weeks ago, Carly and I did, where we sent out an ingredient list in advance. We had if you guys are from Chicago, we had the Twisted Spoke partner with us. And for a company, we ran a happy hour on a Friday evening. We made sure people had ingredients. We didn't send them to them, although that's a great opportunity to create a drinks kit that you can also send to folks. But we made sure people had the ingredients ahead of time, and we also send alternates. So if you don't have this fancy, liqueur, then you can use pineapple juice. I mean, I really dumb it down, and then I might be like, no. But we tried to do like some cabinet mixology, and also gave people the opportunity to buy some more kind of sophisticated ingredients and kind of make drinks along with us. And what was really fun was we did that for half an hour, and then people just unmuted and asked a bunch of questions like, when should you have a cocktail shaken versus stirred? When do you use bourbon versus whiskey? When do you, like, all these questions that people always had in their minds, but never actually had an opportunity to truly think about and ask. So it was educational, but it was also a demo. It was all kind of put together. So if you have a roster of corporate clients that you were doing catering or delivery for, this might be another great channel for you to introduce them to. And by the way, we did it all free of cost. All we did is we asked the company to make a donation to Twisted Spoke's GoFundMe page. So it was also a lot of like good feels for a Friday afternoon. All right, we have a couple of more minutes. I just kind of very quickly want to talk about delivery platforms. Zoom is a very popular one. There are others that are out there as well. If you're doing a closed event, you really want to look into like a Blue Jeans or a Zoom, or even a Google Hangouts, although that's in our experience has not given us a lot of confidence in terms of stability and things like that. Hopefully nobody from Google is on the call. But we would recommend kind of Zoom or Blue Jeans or something like that. If you're trying to do an open event, obviously you can go on to Instagram Live or Facebook Live and do an event there. We're also seeing that, some of the talent is a little camera shy. So if you want to like produce a clip or a demo and then attach that to a offering that you have. Another example is we're partnering on a Mother's Day kind of basket kit, whatever you want to call it. We're actually going to send a video out so that people can actually watch the video whenever they have time. And whenever they want to kind of put the basket together and the brunch together for their mothers. So it doesn't always have to be a live virtual event. A virtual event could also be something that's pre-recorded, and it will maybe also help you kind of get the initial jitters out if you are a little camera shy. Okay, very quickly, Carly, can you talk about,
Yeah.
and marketing and how should we think about partnerships?
Yeah, so I am a big believer in partnerships. All the work that I've done over the past decade has been in covering the food and beverage industry, which by nature is a very collaborative, supportive, partnerships-driven space. And I think particularly now, a lot of people, whether you're a restaurant, whether you're a foundation like the Trotter Foundation or the Trotter Project, whether you're a media company like Eater or The Infatuation, Chef's Feed, everyone is really trying their best to figure out a way to support restaurants and also support diners and help them stay sane while they're at home. So whether that's sharing interesting cooking videos or doing features with, you know, let's say Dory Greenspan and a baking tutorial. Everyone's really actually working towards pretty similar goals right now, which is not always the case. And so that makes partnerships easier than normal, particularly when revenue is not worked into the mix and you're not talking about rev share deals and contracts and, you know, making this a super formal process. It's more of a, hey, we're doing this, we would love to support you, and promote the events you're doing. What else could, you know, we help you with in the future? And I think it's a really exciting time because the walls are down. You know, people are being very honest and upfront and real right now. And so these conversations, at least when I look at past conversations I've had with different organizations, people are like, yeah, let's try it. Let's just do this. You know, people are down and excited. And I think, you know, when you're focusing on partnerships and marketing and figuring out how to really promote your brands, think about, are you looking for a complementary partnership here, right? Like, are you finding organizations that have the same audience as you, and so it's a natural fit and you're preaching to the choir, or is it an audience that you're trying to get into and tap into more? So like, let's say your audience is already, you know, maybe not as kid friendly or young family oriented, then maybe, but you want to get into that space by selling family kits, then maybe you partner with another restaurant group or brand that has, you know, a larger and more engaged following with that demo background. Yeah. And then as far as social is concerned, I'm a believer of being really good at one or two channels versus spreading yourself too thin. So think about which ones make the most sense for you. And again, Instagram's a good fallback if you're not sure which one's the best for you. Definitely one of the most engaging for the food space. But yeah, there's a lot that you can do around that. But I want to obviously give enough time for Belinda to share her, what she's been working on. And yeah, so if you guys ever have any questions though, you can just ping me on LinkedIn or email Disha. We're here to answer questions. So yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and reintroduce Belinda if that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. So Belinda and I met probably a little over a year or so ago. It was a really lovely serendipitous meeting, and then we had a powwow at the patio of Big Star, which I miss so much right now. And it was right before the Beard Awards, and Belinda throws this amazing pre-prom party every year for all the female James Beard Award nominees. And so I decided to partner with her to, you know, help out with her event, and it is spectacular. And once the Beard Awards do come back, since obviously they were supposed to be this, we would have been doing it this weekend, which is crazy, sad. Anyways, she's just an incredible person, super knowledgeable, and James Beard Award winning sommelier, and obviously the creator of Boozy Brunch. And she's really honestly the global leader in virtual luxury experiences. I mean, she is the queen of caviar and champagne. It's good to be friends with Belinda. And yeah, she's just doing amazing work as far as getting tons, I mean, millions of attendees to go to her events in total. And then she's raised tens of thousands of dollars for furloughed and laid off service workers. So at all of her events, and she'll go into this, but she has Venmo pages that go up for the people who are in her events. And so if anybody wants to tip, let's say the sommelier girl in the goat for sharing her wine tips, you can go ahead and Venmo her, which is really awesome. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, Disha, to ask away.
Thank you, Belinda. Thank you for making the time. I know this was like short notice and you were like, yes, I'm doing it. I am ready to, like, you know, kind of spread my knowledge of everything I've learned over the last 7 weeks. So welcome.
Of course.
And Belinda, just let's get started with you telling us a little bit about Boozy Brunches. What made you kind of
Sure.
create that concept and what is it?
First, I wanted to make the best use of everyone's time. If anyone hasn't been on a Zoom yet, there's a little chat box down in the center. So if you're near a keyboard, I would really love it if the people who are participating right now kind of type in chats for us, what kind of business they have and how we can tailor this last 15 minutes to really help them with ideas. But to answer your question, Disha, I started Boozy Brunch 7 weeks ago. It was a Tuesday in the week where the governor decided in Illinois that we would be sheltering in place on a Saturday. And I thought, okay, so my business is in real life events. What am I going to do? And I've heard of this thing called Zoom. And I'll also say that up to that point, many weeks ago now, it feels like forever ago in March, I had been on FaceTime maybe twice, on Skype 3 times. And one of those times was 5 years ago when I actually did a Skype Champagne 101 class for the editors of Glamour magazine. So that was the extent of my experience with virtual events. I'd done two, but it was years ago. So I thought, all right, we'll check out this Zoom thing. And I invited a bunch of people who were here in Chicago, and we purchased cocktail kits from the Violet Hour because I knew that they were closing and I wanted to help them. And we purchased those. I delivered them to all of the participants, and they had the best time ever. And I thought, wow, this is such a powerful thing that I now want to use it to help all of my friends who are devastated, furloughed, and laid off wine directors and sommeliers and bartenders, restaurateurs, and small business owners. And so that Sunday, we got about 100 people to log in. And it's the format of sort of a 1 hour, almost TV news show where each of our guests, we have a food guest every week, we have a drink guest every week, and then also sort of a lifestyle type guest. The first week we had a doctor from Northwestern Hospital because a lot of people had a lot of questions about what was going on with this pandemic. And it's really amazing. We gave Venmo information, as Carly said, to all of those people, except for the doctor. She didn't want to do that. And the audience gave thousands of dollars. And I think what was really so powerful about that to me, not just that everybody really does want to help right now and find all of the ways to support, but there are a lot of funds where we're giving dollars and we don't know where they're going. In this particular scenario, those dollars went direct into the pocket of the wine director who then used them to buy groceries. So I really felt like this was a smart way, and I really started to sort of understand the power of these virtual events. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
Wow. I mean, it's truly impressive, Belinda, that in 7 weeks you've raised over like $30,000. And it's not like one big check that someone wrote. It's literally grassroots donations in
Yeah.
fives and tens and 50s. So it's,
And yeah, none of that touched my hands. And actually, we have to update that slide because the number's a little bigger now.
wow.
And I think the other really cool statistic, I was chatting with Carly over text this morning. I've sort of learned how to leverage this power of this on-screen thing. And last night I did a virtual wine experience for a credit card company on Twitter Live. So I've learned that now too. And I tell you what, it's very challenging. I will say too, for the brunches, a 1 hour show that everybody is really lauding the quality of. We've had a lot of media and a ton of media coverage. We've been written about in Jancis Robinson's Purple Pages and Fortune magazine and Forbes magazine. And so to your point, if your reason for doing this is to get a lot of exposure and hopefully, some halo effect for your good works, this is a smart way. I've been spending 100 hours a week to make this show pretty incredible and underwriting all of the costs myself. So really it's a purely benevolent endeavor to do good. But anyway, I was going to share that last night's MasterCard Twitter Live has had 1.5 million views already. And that's a
Wow.
wine tasting. So if you want to, get into this virtual game, it can be an unbelievably powerful thing for you if you collaborate. My first week of the Boozy Brunch, I collaborated with a friend who's an Emmy award-winning TV producer and also with a multiple Emmy award-winning host, because I think you have to approach these things if you want to really get the return on investment and the return on investment of your time, because these take a lot of time to do well. bring in some pros to help you. And I think you can realize a really high rate of return if you do it great. Doing kind of a half-assed, if I can say that, job. We're not on broadcast TV, so I can say swear words. Will actually do something terrible and turn people off, right? So I love this Zoom format, especially the meeting, because you can look into people's eyes and see how you are engaging, right? If they're nodding with you and they're doing what you're asking them to do, you have something really powerful and amazing. And unlike, throwing a wine dinner or some of our old little marketing tips and tricks, those people aren't in the wine dinner like on their phones, because they see you seeing them, and we're like this. So when we ask for someone to Venmo tips or give donations or do a yoga exercise with us, they know we're watching, and it's unbelievable, but they do it with us. So it's really remarkable, and maybe even a higher level of engagement than you can get with an in real life event, which I think not a lot of people have realized yet, but I'm feeling it.
Yeah, that's kind of, actually, it's very counterintuitive for you to say that, Belinda, that there is more engagement in a virtual event than a real life event.
Yeah.
I feel like we're all kind of like starting to learn that a little bit now as we're forced.
I think that this is going to go on. My wine clients from before the pandemic and a lot of my big kind of global brand clients are starting to see it. I don't know that, for the wine space, and we know we have a lot of restaurateurs here. We've probably all been to one of those big walk around tastings where there's 50 to 100 or more winemakers and spittoons everywhere and open glasses of wine everywhere. Who is going to want to do that this year or maybe ever again? So, how are we going to get exposure for all of these different wineries and winemakers and wine brands when this big walk around tasting format is not working anymore? So I think it's really would be to your benefit to learn how to leverage this kind of virtual reality and these kinds of virtual experiences and figure out how to employ them in your business.
Yeah, definitely no communal spittoons anytime soon.
No. I mean, we were talking, I don't think I even want to go to a restaurant. Like, even if the restaurant has half the number of tables, and God love ya, I love to be at a restaurant more than anywhere else, but I also want to live, right? So I'm getting my restaurant experiences here and in the Brunch in specific. And I've also been, for private clients, hosting 5-course tasting menu evenings where, we have the chef on camera, and I've shipped to 2 countries and 10 different cities, actual meal kits for a 5-course tasting menu, sort of Michelin star caliber. We've also shipped the cocktail kits and shipped the 5 wines. So now you're sitting here at a dining table with the exact same food and 16 guests, the exact same wines, and the sommelier is on camera tableside with you throughout the entire dinner, and the chef is also there to help you with the assembly. It was light, so it's almost like you went to Alinea or Per Se or Saison in San Francisco, but even better, because at those restaurants, is the chef gonna stand or sit with you for 3 hours and show you how he assembled the dish? No. Like, Thomas Keller might stop by for 2 minutes and say hello and thank you for coming, and the sommelier might show up every time you order a new bottle and say a few words about it. But in this paradigm, the sommelier and the chef are with you.
Yeah, and cans are optional.
Yeah. Right now we're going into, I am a MasterCard Global Ambassador. So this is like priceless experience territory. So you're actually giving maybe an even better dining experience in some ways than someone can get in a restaurant. So you have to sort of embrace that magic and figure out how to make this maybe even more magical than you would when you're serving a guest in your space.
So Belinda, question for you. You started this 7 weeks ago. What would you say are your learnings between week 1 and week 7? Like, what is the hypothesis or a premise you started with that has completely changed by week 7?
Well, I have 2 types of events right now, obviously. So one is revenue generating. And then the Boozy Brunch is one that was never intended to be revenue generating. That was to generate funds for other people. I watched a lot of people with their GoFundMe pages, and I think if you were a restaurant of long standing and you have a ton of regulars, and it made it a little easier. And I don't see many GoFundMe pages making it to the goal in any sort of good pace. So I just also thought like, okay, maybe I can find a better way. And we fundraise at like an insane pace with these. You appear for 5 minutes and
Right.
something and teach people a little skill, and then boom, there's your dollars. So I think the learning is, I think you said it very well in the beginning portion of this webinar. You really need to know what your actual goals are. Are you doing a virtual event to sell more food delivery? Are you doing it to, sell cocktail kits? Are you doing it to just keep all of your regulars or even engage new clientele? So you have to design the experience with that in mind. So for the events that I'm doing where they are revenue generating for me, I'm just providing something that all of these people who are my private clients really desire. So what do they want? They're happy to spend anything for it, which is great. I'm very lucky. They want to be with their friends, having a restaurant experience. Like the first one that I did, which was 6 weeks ago, was for a woman's 40th birthday. Her husband had a plan to throw her this extravagant 40th birthday party, and he couldn't do it. And he was devastated, and he saw Boozy Brunch, and he said, oh my gosh, so that really felt like being in a restaurant. Could we do that for a small group of people and at a higher level? So, that then sort of segment of my business was born, and now I've done a bunch of them. We did a Kentucky Derby inspired dinner party for a group last night of 16 people. So we shipped out huge kits with pimento cheese and house-made crackers and all these different things, and also 2 rare cask bourbons. And then a bartender was on screen with me the entire time to show everybody how to crack the ice and make proper mint juleps and to talk about these rare bourbons. And then I was on camera the entire evening to, sort of, song and dance, jazz hands.
Entertain and educate.
Right. That's what I was doing. Thank you, Carly. I was entertaining and educating, facilitating merriment, because even though this is a dark and challenging time, we're humans and we need connection and we need like a break and we need
something to look forward to. Yeah.
So we also, all of us are in hospitality. So this gives us an opportunity to continue to serve and, bring joy as we did before in our real spaces. But now we're doing it in our customers' and clients' living rooms, which is, I know that these people that I've been doing this for are now, it's so crazy. They're all my new best friends. The Sunday brunchers, there are people that have been coming every single week for 7 weeks. And there are people, we leave it open for a post party. People will stay on for hours. And I just know that, like I have hundreds, thousands of new friends as a result of this Boozy Brunch, who hopefully will be clients too moving forward.
And Belinda, this is also a great example of, Carly was talking about partnerships earlier. Like sometimes you don't know where to start. Like your Instagram following might be 100 people. So you're like, well, how can I do an event? And what is the point of that? But doing a partnership, attending events like yours, reaching out to folks who are already kind of front runners, who have already started building that followership is a great idea. And, because you don't have that physical kind of space, so you're not on Randolph Street here or like downtown, everyone's in their kitchens and everybody like, every restaurant is a ghost restaurant right now, a ghost kitchen right now. So you're kind of on the same footing as everybody else. So don't feel like you need to have this big following to actually start doing a virtual event. And I would say, reach out to anybody who sounds interesting to try and do a partnership.
Well, also, Disha, as there are a lot of restaurateurs here, I mean, everybody's got, if they have a reservation system, you've probably got an email mailing list that's just sitting there. And, these people, if they loved your place, they want to hear from you. So why not bring them some fun news instead of the typical email, which I'm getting every hour on the hour from like the place that I brought one t-shirt from once, like, we're here for you. This email drives me insane. We're here for you. We're cleaning more. We're supporting you. And I'm like, no, how about you send me a blast that says we're having a fun virtual party tomorrow and we'd love for you to join, and it's free to join. And then through that party and, making some cocktails or something, you share with them all of the offerings and what they can buy from you and maybe a new dish that you have available for delivery. I think that is a very welcome communication, and people will be grateful that you're just trying to connect with them for something that's has a little bit of joy involved, because we all need it. I mean, I need to laugh, I need to drink, I need to drink and laugh, and not by myself, but like a group of people.
So Belinda, we have one more question for you. And then in case there are any additional questions that folks have, just add them to the box and we'll pick them up in the last few minutes that we have here. Belinda, so we talked a lot about partnerships. What do people have to do to get featured on your brunch?
They just need to reach out to me. You can DM me at my Instagram, Belinda_Chicago, or you can reach out to me in all the usual places, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you like. My website is belindachang.com. You can find me there as well. And I'm always looking for people that are great on camera and have a fun story to tell to our very engaged audience of hundreds of people. So yeah, just let me know.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Belinda, for
you rock. You're an inspiration.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You truly are. And you so you are a genius. And Carly, thank you so much for also kind of partaking in our conversation and giving us some things to remember in terms of marketing and brand kind of essentials as we think about creating our virtual events. I don't see any questions in our Q&A, so we could perhaps end a little early and give back time to folks. Before I leave, I will say this. Please go to eat.news. There is a step-by-step guide to creating virtual experiences. Lots of examples in there for you to be inspired by, very action-oriented. If you would like to do a virtual event of your own and don't know where to start, contact me, contact Carly. Here's my email address. We had a few questions about, will the recording be sent out? I don't know if we can send the recording out. It's very large, but we can definitely send out the guide and a few resources in case you guys want to reach out and keep the conversation going. And Belinda, we can add your Boozy Brunch information to the note as well.
Great.
I've been to one of them. It's super fun, super boozy. So I highly encourage it. And so if you guys want to join the next one, we'll share that information as well. Any final thoughts, panelists, before we leave?
One last thing, actually, I did not emphasize enough how powerful newsletters are. And to Belinda's point, if you're a restaurateur, you do have this list, right? Whether it's through OpenTable or Talk or whatever POS system or third-party platform you're working with. So people want to hear from you and just embrace what your special sauce is, so to speak. Like everyone, I mean, one of the things that makes me so proud to be a Chicagoan is that the dining scene is truly one of a kind and incredible. And the people are great and talented and hardworking, and just each restaurant is so individualistic. So embrace that. Like if you're doing something interesting and different, share that with people. And you may not think it's interesting and different, but it is. Like it really, there's so many incredible establishments across the city. And so take advantage of that, that email list. Obviously you don't want to overblast people. I would start with maybe once a week. But yeah, tying that into virtual events is like a very natural marriage to integrate them together. So that's my last thought.
Thank you, Carly. Thank you everyone. Have a great Friday and a weekend. The webinar action, I think, is coming back next Tuesday. So stay tuned for the next topic. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye. Have a great weekend.